Hi, in this video we'll be showing you how to debug common issues with your Nginx server. As you can see here, our website is returning a connection timeout and we're not sure why that's happening, so we'll want to SSH into our web server and start checking on its status. So let's get started. So here we are in our web server, and to check on the Nginx status we'll use systemctl status Nginx, and that will show us the status of the Nginx service. And you can see here underneath active, we have inactive, and our server is dead, and it's been down for 28 minutes. So we will want to get that resolved as quickly as possible. So the first thing we want to do is to just start the service. And we could do that again with systemctl. You can either use start or restart. I tend to like restart just because it does a full shutdown and startup in case it was running, but it's up to you. All right, so if it's up and running, we will want to check its status, and you can see that it is already up, running, and active. So that is a good first start. We can go and check on our website now. And it looks like we still aren't loading. So let's go ahead and fix the service so that it starts automatically on boot, so we don't have this trouble again. And we could do that by just enabling the service by default. And there we go, it'll be started the next time. So now let's continue debugging why we can't connect. The next thing I would check would be the firewall status. And since we're on Ubuntu here, we could use UFW status to see what is open on our firewall. And you can see that we don't have any HTTP or HTTPS ports open. To do this with Nginx, you typically want to use UFW app list, which will show you what you have available to add to your allowed list. Nginx full will basically just add HTTP and HTTPS by in one command. However, since we're only using HTTP, it's best to only use HTTP and leave HTTPS closed for now. To add that to our firewall allowed list, we'll use UFW allow, and then whichever service we want to actually allow. And for us, that's going to be just HTTP. It says it added it for IPv4 and IPv6 because we have both enabled. So if we go back and check the status, we should see that Nginx HTTP is now allowed everywhere. So we can check our website to see if it has started loading again. We're going to need to refresh. Okay, so it looks like we are now hitting our Nginx server. However, we are now getting 502 bad gateway, which is one of the most common issues you'll have with Nginx. And that basically means that the reverse proxy isn't able to connect to your downstream host. So the way we would debug that would first be to check that our configuration files are correct. So back in our SSH session, we will want to do nginx-t, and this will go through and verify the Nginx's config files. And it says syntax is okay for the main file, and the tests have come back well on that file as well. So let's go and check the Nginx log. To do that, we'll tail and follow the var log Nginx. And there's a couple logs here, but the one that will give you the most information with the least amount of filler is the error log. Okay, so you can see here that we're getting connection refused while connecting our upstream host. And if we go and refresh our website, we will see that that is indeed the error that keeps coming up. So we will want to get out of the log and go check on our actual config file to see where our upstream host is. Nginx's logs are by default in, let's see what they're by default in etc Nginx sites enabled, and the default site is all that we have set up here. You may have others and you would have to check on them individually, but they would be all underneath this sites enabled subdirectory. All right, so the part that connects to the upstream host is what we're looking for, and that would be the location variables. And you can see we have two locations here, one of which is commented out and one of which is live. This location here is doing a proxy pass to another web server running on this local machine, but underneath port 8080, as opposed to our Nginx server, which is running on port 80. You may be loading your website from a file, in which case your config will look something like this. If you are getting a 502 bad gateway with a file load, you'll want to make sure that inside of this directory that there's one of these files present. That is most likely your issue if you're running from file. However, since we're running from a proxy pass, which is one of the more common ways to use Nginx, then we'll need to go and actually check on our web server at this address right here. So we will copy that out and get back to a command prompt. So what we want to do is see if our web server is actually running. And to do that, we'll do a curl HTTP localhost. Since it's on the localhost, we could actually probably check to see how it's running first, but typically it'll be on some other remote server. But here, we'll just go in and curl it and see if we could get anything back from it. And we can't, which is what the problem would that Nginx error log was showing, that it was unable to connect to the upstream host here. So, depending on how your web server is actually set up and configured, you'll need to make sure that this address here is going to resolve. In our case, this is just going to be a Docker container running underneath port 8080, and we could check, see if our container is actually up with Docker PS, and it's not. So we could check on the status of our web server with PSA. Yep, and you can see that it has exited and it's been down for 36 minutes. So we will want to get that back up and running. So to do that, we'll do docker start web. And then we could verify that it started with Docker PS. And indeed, it is up and running. So the next thing I would do would be to go ahead and tail your error log again. And then we'll go ahead and refresh our website and see if we can get it to load. And sure enough, our web server is up and running now and passing to the upstream host, which in our case is our Docker container, but in your case may be something else. And we could also verify that here with by doing our curl again to our local host. And you can, sure enough, you can see our hello world and our little Docker ASCII art here. So that's it for this video, and I hope you get your server up and running soon. Thanks.